Hello, I wanted to make a video that will show you how to work a bit with setting up a positive control and a negative control setup within the natural selection simulation software that you're working with this week. Um, Remember that a positive control is an experimental setup where you're setting up the experiment to expect a change in the dependent variable. But a negative control is an experimental setup where you do not expect there to be a change in the dependent variable. And I'll be honest, given the parameters of at least the population module of the natural selection simulation, it's really challenging to set up a negative control. Um, for this experiment. It's much easier to set up a positive control. And let me show you why I think this is the case. So if we look at the negative control data, I started with that. I thought to myself, well, if I set up an experiment where all of the water fleas were orange and they were living in an environment that was exclusively composed of orange plants, well, all of the water fleas should be able to successfully camouflage and hide from the predatory fish. And as a consequence, there shouldn't be a significant change in the dependent variable over the course of time. So I set up the experiment to include 100% of the water fleas would be orange in coloration, while there are zero red water fleas and zero yellow water fleas. So, thinking to myself that this was a pretty clever solution, I went ahead and ran the simulation for 50 generations, and lo and behold, red water fleas appeared and yellow water fleas appeared. So what that's telling me is that these orange water fleas have a genetic background that allows for both red water fleas and yellow water fleas to appear in the population over time. So I'm not going to be able to create a condition where the dependent variable for the red water fleas, percent survival, nor the dependent variable for the yellow water fleas remains unchanged. So I'm having a really tough time setting up a negative control. Now, for the orange water fleas, I am getting closer to a negative control, but not really. Remember that I started with 100% of the water flea population consisting of the orange fleas, and I still saw a reduction in the number of those fleas. So it's going to be really challenging to set up a negative control experimental setup for this simulation. In fact, I would just go ahead and skip it for this lab activity. However, for the positive control, it's a little bit easier to set up that part of your experiment. So this time, what I did was, again, create an environment that was exclusively composed of orange plants. And this time set up an equal number of red, orange, and yellow water fleas in the population. And what I was hoping for, right, is to preferentially select for the orange water fleas that can camouflage in now the orange water plant environment and successfully avoid predation. And for the most part, that is what I'm seeing. Um, there was an increase, a statistically significant increase in the percent survival of the orange water fleas. And while there is a reduction in both the red and the yellow water flea populations, I would have expected that decrease. So I would have expected there to be a decrease in the red and yellow water flea population because they're being preyed upon. I would have expected an increase in the percent survival of the orange water fleas because they are successfully able to camouflage and survive um, predation from these fish swimming around in the aquarium. So a little bit closer to a true positive control, certainly better than what we're able to set up in the context of a negative control. And I hope this helps as you continue to set up your experiment independently. As always, please don't hesitate to ask if you have any questions.